Mr. Speaker. I first wish, of course, as I always do, to pay homage to the people of St. James North for giving me the opportunity to make this my first budget speech in my second decade as a member of this Parliament. I wish to say that this is the best possible budget speech, sir, and I prefer to call it a second reading speech in the Appropriation Bill, because that is effectively what it is, sir. A speech arising from the estimates which we have voted for to continue the operations and administration of this country for the next fiscal year. So this is the best possible speech that a Minister of Finance could have delivered in this Parliament on behalf of the people of Barbados. No new taxes, sir. The main opposition party clearly has egg on its face when, as soon as it was announced that we would have a budget speech, sir, first thing they said was how new taxes will come into effect. Well, I think all of us in here knew that that was not going to be the case, sir, because that is not how a caring government operates. That is how a government or an administration that was bereft of ideas, creative, visual, visionary, or otherwise operated, sir, but that's not how this Barbados Labour Party operated, sir, or operates. Therefore, no new taxes, sir. Within the context of an economy that has grown by 10%, over 10% last year, coming out of the wake of the most terrible crises that a small island, vulnerable developing state such as Barbados could have been enthralled in the three previous years. Sir, tourism is up to almost pre-pandemic levels, sir, and that, of course, is pleasing to me as a member of Parliament of a constituency in the heart of the tourist belt, where people's jobs were seriously affected during the pandemic to the extent that 85% of the households in St. James North had at least one person who lost their jobs during that period. And therefore, it is pleasing to me to see the efforts of the Ministry of Tourism, sir, led by the Honourable Member of Christchurch, of St. Michael West Central, who is right-fitted in the job, and previous ministers of tourism, sir, in bringing back tourist numbers back to where they were. Of course, we now have to look at increased length of stay of tourists, sir, and of course, the continuation of the welcome stamp will assist in doing that. But, sir, I want to speak in terms of the transformative elements of the budget within the context of our people, sir, because this is what really is of import and why we are here, sir, to represent people and to make lives better for our people, and the transformative effects of this budget in terms of our society. And the training programs, sir, the buttressing of training programs within the context of training for supervisory management staff, for instance, for improved management and productivity and accountability and transparency, and to equip both our public servants and those in the private sector, sir, with skills which are beneficial and transferable is of prime importance, sir. Because we need to increase our productivity in this country. We need to ease our capacity and ability to deliver and to do business in this country, and to make it easier for our citizens to facilitate business and in their daily lives, sir. Therefore, training of supervisory management staff is key. I think we all recognize, sir, that one of the failings of our country and of our administrations is in supervisory management, sir, because the minister or the senior public servants can't manage everything and supervise everything. And therefore, there's recognition, for example, that supervisors in works ministries have not been as effective as they ought to be in managing their human resources and their financial resources as well, sir. And therefore the training elements and monies being placed in the budget, in the estimates on the whole for this is key. So management training initiative offering contracts to young professionals between ages 25 and 35 to enhance their professional careers and to gain work experience. They're being paid $6,000 a month to have training to move towards senior public service positions is also key, because I think that during the last few years we have not spent enough money and resources in terms of training for senior public service positions, and this is required. I know that under the administration of the late Honourable Owen Officer, monies were spent for senior public servants who are moving towards permanent secretary positions to go overseas and train at Harvard University, Harvard Business School, for instance. So this is providing the opportunity again for this kind of initiative to take place. And this is key in our country, because we have to have not only our middle-level management in the public service and private sector, sir, be fit for purpose, but also our top public officers, sir. Parental training, key, sir. Parental training in this country. We all know, sir, we all have to admit, yes, that it is easy to get a child physically, but a lot of our people get children that they're not emotionally, psychologically, or financially prepared to have and to be able to raise and to give the opportunity to be the best citizen that they can be. And so it's for this reason too that I took a personal decision, as I've said, I believe in this Parliament, at the start of this year, to join Parados, sir, to give Parados assistance even before I end my elective career in politics, because this is one of the key areas and elements of our country, of our society that we need. And therefore the parental training support for parents who need knowledge and help in parenting, sir, is a key factor to help this society move along. So training in conflict resolution, and again, this is very important. So we haven't always been the best that we can be in educating and training our people how to resolve conflicts, sir. And I must say, sir, the foundation that I've had now I've been patron of for 10 years, coexistent with my entry into this Parliament, sir, has focused on that from the start, and we have had training programs, sir, 5 of them: conflict resolution, teamwork, and problem solving, critical thinking. These are areas that we have not always trained our people in terms of our schooling and otherwise. And the Honourable Prime Minister spoke about that yesterday in terms of our need to better our conflict resolution processes, and the fact that monies is provided in these estimates to better our ability and our tolerance in terms of conflict resolution and teamwork and problem solving. So all of these are key, sir, to the development of our country, just as much as housing is, and the thrust of this administration to provide 10,000 houses in the 5-year period, sir, is also key, because people need shelter. And the affordable housing that is being provided by this administration under the leadership of the Honourable Member for St. George South, sir, is commendable and needs to have been done a long time ago, sir, because affordable housing is key. And we have too many of our constituents who speak about wanting housing, sir, wanting as is their right to own a piece of this rock, but not being given the opportunity to do so, sir. And therefore, the provision in the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East's speech yesterday about green climate funding, sir, and the application to the Green Climate Fund Board for, I think it is $50 million, sir, to assist with housing, providing housing for people in this country who otherwise would never perhaps own a home. It's commendable and has to be supported. As we move towards housing by both the public and private sector, sir, within the context as well of 10% of public housing, state housing being reserved for people with disabilities who otherwise would not be able as well to own a house. So road repairs, key issue, as the Honourable Prime Minister said, sir, within the town hall meetings, and we didn't have to go to town hall meetings to know that. This year especially, one of the major issues has been the state of our roads, sir. But that has not been by happen chance, sir, and the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister has a difficult task because she came and found, certainly in 2017, a report that said that 70% of the roads in Barbados were in a state of disrepair and needed repairing. The fact of the matter, sir, is that Barbados has the largest road network system in the world per square mile. Over 1,900 kilometers of road, 1,200 miles of road for 166 square mile country. That works out, sir, to over 7 miles of road for every square mile in this country. No country in the world has that amount of roads, sir. And there's reason for that, because these roads were tracks, sir, started as tracks in slavery and our plantation economy after slavery, and we all know that Barbados at one time was the leading, quote-unquote, sugar colony in the world, or slave colony, I should say, sir, in the world. That slavery, the code laws and the slave codes began here in this Barbados in the 1660s, sir, and were then replicated throughout the British Commonwealth and Africa and the countries that the 8 colonial powers of Europe divided up among themselves. And that's the genesis of our large road networks, that were built to take out the cane to the plantations, to take out the cane, in the plantations to the factories, sir. And that's it, sir. So, all our roads can't be repaired at one time, the 70% that need repairing, sir. It has to be a process. The ministry, as I said in the estimates last week, Wednesday, I think perhaps needs to make it clear to the people on the basis of how they prioritize which roads should be repaired, sir. I'm thankful, sir, that Rotterdam Road, which I've been clamoring for to be repaired for 11 years since I became a candidate, sir, has been started, sir. $4 million, a lot of money, sir, to be started, and that Sign Hill Tenantry Road has been repaired in 4 days, sir, very quickly. But as the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister said in the debate last week, sir, I've asked for at least 20 others, more than 20 others to be repaired, but I accept that it takes time, sir, and I'm trying to tell my constituents to manage their expectations, and we look forward to, at the end of the term, most of the 20 plus roads in St. James North that are in dire state of repair being repaired, sir. After all, we have $27.6 million in CAF Road Rehabilitation Program to repair. We have 240 odd million from the Chinese for Scotland District. We have 27 million voted in this Parliament last week for road repairs, sir. And we look forward to this bugbear being addressed. So the construction projects of which we have heard of and which the Honourable Prime Minister spoke about yesterday, we look forward to the start, sir, because construction projects getting off the ground means employment for our people, sir. And within that context of employment and construction projects, sir, I too urge in this Parliament, as I've done previously, both inside and outside of this Parliament, my constituents and indeed the whole of Barbados to take part in the extensive training initiatives that we have orchestrated, sir. There's no excuse once you are able to do them. National Transformation Initiatives, sir, ably led by Dr. Alison Leacock. We have many programs in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, sir, training initiatives. We have the Citizenship program, sir, because gone are the days where you can depend only on having one skill. So this has to be an era whereby our citizens are multi-tasked and multi-skilled to be able to adjust and as the jobs, as the labor market requires, sir. Because Barbadians, sir, and I've said this and I make no shame, Barbadians must be the first call for jobs, sir. So I can't accept a situation where people call each of us and say, MP, we want a job, I want a job. When we have the training opportunities and money, the construction gateway program, which actually paying you a stipend, which is giving you as well apprenticeship opportunities, sir, for training in different tasks and in trades, sir, to make you capable and able to hold down a sustainable job in this job market, sir. Within the context of all that has happened, sir, this administration has been able to find a second salary increase for public servants in less than 5 years, sir. Compared to the time, the last decade, sir, immediately before May 2018, when public servants had one salary increase in 10 years, in the last decade, sir, plus, of course, 4,000 layoffs in 2013, sir. And that is commendable, sir, to bring the public officers into this berry, sir, and a serious attempt being made to deal with the cost of living with a cap on the fuel tax, sir, and of course the increase in personal income tax allowance for pensioners from $40,000 to $45,000, sir, as the Honourable Member for St. James South spoke of just now. So continuing on the social reform, sir, we recognize that educational reform is key, sir, because Barbados has always had a lead in terms of our education, but the colonial education that we inherited, sir, on independence has long past served us, sir. And we have to, educational reform has to be a key. And the Honourable Member for St. Philip West, sir, no doubt has the ability and capacity to lead us, to lead this initiative, sir. I really urge her to have this on stream by the time we reach next year's estimates, sir. I know that $40 million is being borrowed from the IDB, sir, and that this month itself, this program was supposed to start in terms of reform of the educational sector over the next 5 years. And 4 components of that reform include curriculum reform, which is long since passed, sir, because we have to reform what we teach our children to make them ready for the job market, sir, within the context that about 65% of our students are being educated now for jobs that don't exist. We have to create more jobs in this country, a wider job market in this country for our young people. And that means, of course, creating new industries and new businesses, sir, and of course, tied up in that is immigration reform as well, because we need more people in this country to generate more money circulating within this country, sir. And of course, in addition to curriculum reform, sir, and I'm sure the Honourable Minister of Education will speak more on this when she has her opportunity to in this budget debate, but in addition to curriculum reform is the thrust and reform in terms of inclusive education, sir, key. because special needs children have to be accounted for and given the opportunity to fulfill their potential and their talents like everybody else has that right, sir. And I know the Ministry of Education is beneficiary of some studies, more recent studies, sir, on this, like a study by the Caribbean Development Bank, sir, speaking towards inclusive education for persons, children with special needs, sir. And that is key in terms of our reform as well, sir. Law reform, sir, can't be left out because law reform has to deal with people and adjusting this society in terms of social advancement of our people, sir. And this government was correct and took an extremely wise and visionary decision in forming a law reform commission a few years back, sir. That commission, of course, has shown its worth, sir, by as has been said, retaining a top legal brain to have a draft Rights of Persons with Disabilities bill, sir, which we've heard about and spoken about, sir, and which should come, well, certainly is before the ministry, sir, and it is just that the National Advisory Committee, now that we've had the national policy document, sir, and we're finishing off stakeholders meetings very soon. Tomorrow we have one of our final meetings, sir, with the women's groups, the men's groups, BARP, the youth groups, sir. And once we sign off on that national policy document, sir, and make sure that the draft legislation is coherent and in coordination with the policy, sir, to finally have the ministry look at it for onward progress for Cabinet's consideration, sir, and hopefully I will be standing up in this Parliament in the next few months debating the enactment of a Rights of Persons with Disabilities bill, sir, because this is important. But the Law Reform Commission also must have as its mandate to remove all the archaic colonial laws that we inherited on independence, sir, and because of the Savings Clause, we had to continue for a while. So, but time has long passed where laws that were enacted in this Parliament that did not represent the people of Barbados, the majority people, laws passed 100 years ago, sir, are abolished, sir. We have abolished some. We abolished the Prevention of Corruption Act, that was a 1929 act, and replaced it, sir, an act that the then Prime Minister, sir, who I notice has arisen from his sleep again, as he unfortunately does probably once every 5 years. He has said that that act passed in 1929 in Barbados based on a 1917 UK act was good enough for Barbados. I don't know which world he lived in, but we've abolished that, sir. We have others to abolish, sir. So, quite honestly, sir, the Child Justice Bill and the Child Protection Bill can't come before this House for debate any sooner, sir. And we quite honestly, sir, need to reflect, sir. We need to reflect as parliamentarians on whether we did our best for our most vulnerable children, especially girls who found themselves in government industrial schools, sir. And we all have to take responsibility, sir, because as the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, he said, sir, Cabinet had approved a Child Justice Bill in May 2019, sir. And we all know, sir, what happened in the interim from 3 years ago, sir, in terms of COVID and everything else. But still, we ought to reflect on whether we could have had these bills before Parliament earlier and debated such that the judiciary did not have to rule what I believe that certainly all of us lawyers knew, that parts of that bill, reformatory bill, sir, which was enacted again this third decade of the 20th century, whether that it was unconstitutional, sir. We all knew that wondering, you can't put a 13-year-old girl in government industrial school for a minimum of 3 years, sir. For wandering, for just being out on the street when she had social problems at home or was being physically or sexually abused, sir. And the truth is that in some cases, mothers before a court telling the magistrate that I can't deal with my child, send it to GIS, sir. Absolutely unacceptable. So we need to get these bills, sir, which are now approved by Cabinet. I believe the Child Protection Bill is laid, sir. We need to get them on debate in this Parliament as soon as possible, sir. When I was Home Affairs Minister and I used to visit the girls' industrial schools, sir, invariably I used to cry, sir, to see girls in there confined like this, sir. And I released many of them, and boys too, sir, such that by the time I was no longer minister, sir, the numbers there had been reduced drastically, and I had said, look, and I had a pact with the Ministry of Youth Affairs, sir, that those released would go in the Youth Corps, and many of them went in there, sir, but of course the Youth Corps was curtailed as a result of the pandemic as well, sir. Of course, it is tremendous to see that the Youth Corps is back on stream. $8.5 million is voted for it in this estimate, sir. And again, all of that is part of giving our youth, our young people, an opportunity, sir, to progress in this country and to realize their full talent, sir. So this administration is giving young people not only a first opportunity, sir, with free education at point of delivery, sir, including those at University of the West Indies, who we made the education free again immediately 6 weeks after coming into office in May 2018, free university education again, sir. But we're giving them a second chance as well with all the training programs that we have, sir. And we're giving them a third chance too with the National Youth Corps, sir. So there's no excuse for our youth, sir, and for them to say that nobody ain't helping me, the government ain't helping me, sir. It is a question of taking advantage of all the opportunities which we have been giving them, sir. Within the context of St. James North, sir, my beloved constituency, I'm glad to see that there is funding for climate funding, sir. Within the context, and the Ministry of Public Works has assured me that monies will be used to engage a consultancy to come up with a feasible solution to the drainage problem and the flooding problem in Trench, for instance, and in other parts of the constituency, sir. We must address the coastal drainage and erosion issue in Roadview and in other areas, sir. And there's money which is being tackled from green funding, which would be utilized for that purpose, sir. Zone 1 regulations need to be addressed, sir, and the Honourable member for St. Michael's South East has recognized that, sir, and I hope that when I stand up, God willing, sir, to speak in this debate next year, that we have rationalized the Zone 1 regulations such that the many areas in my constituency which are affected by it will be relieved from this purpose, sir, because water as well is a fundamental human right. I'm happy, sir, that the Barbados Port Inc. under the Ministry of International Transport is funding, sir, the renovation to the Millie Eiffel Western Fish Market, sir. Key area, sir, that's about to start. The boats being moved, basically all moved, the vendors there being, and the fisher folk being accommodated across the road in newly built facilities during the renovations, while the renovations take place, sir. And the Western Fire Station, of course, now being utilized by the Coastal Zone units. Within the context of our youth, sir, we have to, as I said, create new areas of employment, sir, and use of technology has to be key in this. And this government is committed within the estimates to address that area, increase funding for computer literacy, financial literacy, sir, trust loan funding, sir, and this is key, sir. And money is voted in about 5 ministries, sir: Ministry of Labour, Ministry of State in the Attorney General's Office for Crime Prevention, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Youth. Money is voted in each of those to assist and have programs to better the life of our most vulnerable children, those who are marginalized, those who are socially and economically deprived, those who are subject to intergenerational poverty that we have to, as a government, lessen. And monies in each of these ministries to deal with these and create a better life, and training programs, education, vocational training, and others for these children who are seriously at risk, sir. And it has to be a case, and I can only urge the ministers of those ministries to see how best to rationalize the monies that has been voted for their respective ministries within these estimates, so that maximum use and gain is obtained, and that there's no duplication across the ministries, but rather coordination between them on how best these programs can be used for the benefit of our young people, sir. Thank you, sir. And of course, sir, I would end with those 2 minutes by speaking more about persons with disabilities, sir. And in all my 30 years now, sir, of public life, no task has been more pleasurable and enjoyable to me as public service than being chairman of the National Advisory Committee on Disabilities, sir. As I said, we now have a draft national policy document, sir, comprehensive as could be. We have draft rights of persons with disabilities legislation, sir. So we're on the crust to take off, sir. And this is a far cry from exactly 8 years ago, sir, when on the 13th of March 2015, I lay in this Parliament a private member's resolution calling for the enactment of disabilities legislation, sir, and was completely ignored by the last administration, sir. More has been done in terms of strategic thinking and planning with a view to implementation for people with disabilities in the last 9 months, sir, under the ministry of the Honourable Member for St. Michael's South, sir, than has ever been done previously in this country, sir. Within the context of the speech yesterday, we heard about a First Jobs initiative being created under the Ministries of People Empowerment and the Ministries of Labour to also include persons with disabilities. A key factor, sir, continuation of the program whereby people with disabilities and people within communities must get piece of the cake in terms of government contracts and procurement in this country, sir. And we heard the Honourable Prime Minister speak as well in terms of the workshop to train people with disabilities and within the unit of the National Disabilities Unit in small engine repairs and lawn mowers, weed whackers, blowers, wheelchairs, and how it is estimated that 40 people with disabilities would be able to be trained and certified in this area, sir. But it has to go much further than that, sir. There has to be a much better platform and path set in this country for people with disabilities in terms of their full participation, as is their human and constitutional right within the context of this barbarian country, sir, in terms of accessibility, in terms of educational opportunity, of which I said, sir, and in terms of employment, to reduce that 90% unemployment rate among people with disabilities, which we have at present, sir. And it's going to need a lot. It's going to need total transformation, sir, and reform of how the people of Barbados think towards people with disabilities and treat towards people with disabilities, sir. That they be included in every aspect, every single aspect of this country, sir. And I'm confident that we can do it, sir. So, sir, all hands are needed on this deck. All hands as we strive towards upward, onward, Barbadian excellence by 2030, sir. I have no doubt that this government, this administration, ably and honourably led by the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East, who is, quite honestly, an international star, sir. Everybody wanting a piece of the honour of our Honourable Prime Minister, sir. And the Bridgetown Initiative, sir, which is getting tremendous global support, sir. We saw that last week. Of course, our Honourable Prime Minister would have met with the leader of one of the leading developed countries in the world, in fact, veto power France, one of the big powers at the United Nations and globally, sir, on this initiative. And we give her full support as she and the Honourable Member and her government and this Parliament strives towards making Barbados the country that it ought to be by 2030. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable for Christchurch East.